Recently, I sent out a survey to all of our mailing list subscribers to ask them what do they like and what do they dislike about campsites, to see whether we can come up with any better ideas of things that could be changed to make life a little bit easier when visiting campsites. And that's what we're discussing in this podcast. But welcome to the Just Loans podcast. I'm Chris, and in each episode I'll be sharing stories from our travels, practical tips and tricks, as well as some good-hearted rants about some opinion-splitting, audience-dividing issues. Things like what's better, brown or red sauce? Welcome back to another episode of the Just Sloans podcast. This is another topic that was covered in our mailing list newsletter, a survey that we sent out to people just to see what do they think, what's their opinions, like kind of what's the situation with that, and whether we can come up with something just as a part of a discussion that could be a good solution if you are a campsite owner, or even if you're not, what would you like to see? If you would like to be part of these surveys and the mailing list, then there is a link to that in the description, and in return for signing up for that, we'll give you a free instant guide to the beautiful Isle of Arran. Before I get into the main topic, I also want to mention that we are attending the Van Life Fest in Malton at the end of June. I'll be doing a talk on the Saturday and the Sunday, and we'll be there, both of us, me and Danny, selling our travel guides on a trade stand, which will be great. And we're also, as I've mentioned previously, we are also attending the Caravan and Motorhome Show in the NEC in Birmingham in October on the Park for Nights stand. Just a quick one on that. Last time when we went, it was absolutely hilarious. We were talking to Darren who's the YouTuber Urban Motorhome, if you've seen him before, and he's done it before. We'd never been. And he was like, if you watch, because what happens is everyone gets there far too early. Like, it doesn't open until say 9. I can't remember what time it is. Say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever. And all these old people are queued up at the door, like with a ribbon thing that tells you that it's closed. And then the little tannoy announcement comes over saying, the show is now open. And as they take it off, honestly, it was like the old people Olympics. I've never seen anything quite like it before. They were literally sprinting. I don't know if Darren said it's because they go and try and order the new camper vans or motorhomes and stuff, but I've never seen now quite like that before. I was in awe. So if you go, it'll be a fun one to go and watch the old person Olympics, because it is a little bit dramatic. There's none of yous at that age are in that much of a hurry. Like, I've never seen an old person thought, oh, they're in a hurry until then. So you've got no else better to do, so just chill. Anyway, we discussed in a previous episode how campsites kind of didn't work for us. They just don't. They never have really. So I thought I'd ask people in the survey kind of, what would you change? Do you like campsites? Do you not like campsites? Kind of what parts of it do you like? What about the check-in process? I don't know, like the rigidity of certain parts of it. Like, what would you want to change if you could? And really, like, are you happy with it as it is? Because that's also an option. Anyway, I asked, there was 10 questions in total, and the first 3 were just to figure out who we were surveying, really. So the first one I asked, can you cook in your van? 100% said yes, they can, but 16% of them said that they prefer not to. What is that about? Can anyone inform us? Like, that's like saying I can shit in the toilet, but I prefer to just shit in the grass outside. I don't understand that. Where else are you cooking? I'm not entirely sure. I know Aiden's a little bit like that, where he doesn't really like cooking in his van. Like, where else are you gonna cook? What if, I know a lot of people, I suppose, do travel in this sort of summer where it's more the winter for us. But still, surely, like, I don't know, is that not the point in having the van? You might as well just sleep outside then, if that's the case. I also asked, actually on that topic, just let us know in the comments, like, if you're not cooking in your van, where are you cooking? And if you're like camping off grid, I don't know how I feel about you being outside cooking and all messing about. Because like, that's like, and again, this is just my opinion. If you haven't listened to any of the other podcasts, then listen to them, or just chill out. It's fine. People are allowed a different opinion. But my opinion is, you're not to be just pulling up, emptying all your stuff outside, sitting outside. It's not your house. It's not your garden. You're wild camping. It's not for you to just sit and make this little area yours. Just park up, go to sleep, move on the next morning. That's how I treat it anyway. Again, And our people do it differently. But if you're doing it like off grid, do you still like sit outside and cook and that? I mean, we've done in the winter, like when we've been up to Aviemore with Mark, and even obviously with Aidan and Mark when we done the Three Laddies video, we kind of done that then, and we had like sort of barbecue and that outside on the fire pit. But I mean, this was in the middle of winter. There's literally no one else there. I wouldn't ever do it if there was other people kicking about. I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So it'll be interesting to see what you think and sort of what you do if you didn't cook in your van, because I just thought that was kind of the point. 36% of people that we surveyed don't have a proper toilet in the van as well, which I get obviously if you've got your transporter size. Is there many people, again, let us know in the comments, who have like a medium wheelbase or bigger that don't have a toilet? Because to me, like, it's 100% essential, as is a shower. However, 60% of people don't have a shower either, which I find bamboozling, I think is the word. If you've got a medium wheelbase van, for me, you have to have a wet room. But again, just like layouts, it's a very subjective thing. But for us, it's like one of the most important parts of having a van that big. If I didn't have a wet room and I didn't have like a proper toilet and I didn't have a proper kitchen, I might as well just have a transporter because they're much better at all the other stuff. So so that's the survey results from them. And basically what that tells us is that realistically, 60% of the people that we surveyed do need a campsite at some point. I don't know how long you can go on without a shower, but for me, a couple of days, maybe 3 at a bit of a push, and then I feel minging. Even if I'm wet wipe bathing, it's not the same, is it? You just cannot reach all them crevices. Well, I suppose you can, but I'm not about that. I want a nice shower. I didn't need one I need one every morning minimum, and ideally one on the night as well. But I can get away with like maybe 2 days. But then after that, I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel. So that sort of shows us the bias towards campsites. So that'll help when we're talking about the results, because this survey is based on, and the suggestions that we're making are based on if you had a campsite, or if it's a campsite on a road trip. Because what we also asked is, do you treat campsites differently on a road trip? Because I want to find out, like, if people are staying in a campsite on a road trip for like a week, then really it's the same as the rest of the time. So it kind of means that the things people want are going to be different. But 44% said that they just use them as a stop off for a night. 52% say they might stay a couple of nights, and only 4% say that they stay for extended periods of time. Presumably, no offense, but the ones that stay longer than that are probably just old people, really. I think that's a fact. I mean, I don't know if it is a fact, I don't know who it is, I don't know who voted for that, but presumably it's only your old people that have got enough time to just be spending numerous days on a road trip route, staying at the same campsite. Because really, what are you going to do? Like, for us, when we're on like the NC 500 and that, there's some beautiful places, but there's nowhere I could probably stay for more than like 2 days without being a bit bored. Even, I mean, the north section is probably the section that has the best balance between things to do and scenery, but still, after a couple of days, and like, then you wouldn't want to stray too far from the campsite, because if you do, you might as well be moving on. You didn't want to be driving backwards and forwards, covering the same place all the time on a road trip. So the majority of people that we're discussing, 60% need everything, or need a campsite, I suppose, with services. And the majority of people that we're discussing in this instance are people who stay for 2 nights or less. So that should set the scene, so we can figure out what is going on. What do we like and what do we dislike about campsites? Before I get into them, I just want to mention that if you are looking to plan a road trip to Scotland, we have guides available that cover basically everything that you would need, from like must-sees, food and drink recommendations, campsites, park-ups, services, if there is any, all of that sort of stuff. We've got like the Aaron one comes with a map. They all come with a digital map as well. We've got the instant guides available, so if you prefer something that's a little bit more mobile optimized, then we've got you covered with them as well. They're all available at the link in the description, whether you're watching on Spotify or, listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube or any of that. So you can pick them up, and they do help support the channel and the making of these very mediocre videos and podcasts. So with that out of the way, let's get into this properly. Let's just wet the old whistle first. Okie doke. So the first main question I asked, I think, is one of the more painful aspects of campsites, which is, would you change the campsite booking process? I think we have to, because 78% of people said yes and 22% said no. But like, that's I suppose a bit of a given. But how could we make the booking process easier? I suppose it sounds easier to fix than it actually is, because you'd be like, well, the obvious thing is some sort of central website, or be able to check the availability and do it all through, say, Google. But the back end side of that is so complicated that, like, anyone who's into sort of computers and or just software type stuff and like systems and CRMs and all the rest of it, they'll kind of understand that it's just not as easy as saying, oh, well, yeah, Google can do it, because it relies on all of the campsites having websites that allow that to link to Google or wherever else, and just the systems all have to be integrated. And considering a lot of campsites didn't even have a website, or not a one that you can actually book it on, the chance of that happening is almost zero. And unfortunately, that is, I would say, the key to pretty much everything, really, to be able to fully modernize the booking process. Whichever way you look at it, realistically, you need a back-end booking system that works across all platforms. And that is the biggest sort of issue with this one. What Park for Night are doing, which we spoke to them about and they were telling us about at the NEC, actually, and I think, don't hold us to this, but I'm certain it's just in Germany at the minute, is they're actually rolling out a sort of beta program where you can actually book campsites in the app, which is game-changing if that can be implemented. It ain't going to be implemented in the UK, I cannot imagine, because, again, it still will rely on some sort of back-end system that ties in with the Park for Night app so they can check availability and all the rest of it. Where we are very archaic. We're not exactly a very advanced country, as we're going to find out as I sort of give you some more information as we go on. But like the systems and the campsites and stuff, a lot of the time, I would love to know, and I did check and I can't find it anywhere, what the sort of average age of a campsite owner is, because I'm guessing it's well in the 60s, which I suppose I am being age biased because it's true, but they're not really too arsed. They don't necessarily understand tech to that extreme. And I think what can quickly happen, and just like I do it as well, and that's why I try and sort of explain my bias when I'm talking about bits like this, and tell you that it is just my opinion, is it can be very easy to just get sucked into just presuming, oh, well, I do it this way, so everyone else must. Just like what I'd done when I was sending the survey out asking if campsites were dead, because to me, I'm like, well, of course they're dead. No one visits campsites anymore, but people do, just I don't. So like, I was a bit surprised, and to be honest, it's helped massively, because now it helps us look at things and be like, well, actually, just because I think that definitely doesn't mean that that's going to be true, because we have a completely different use case to a lot of people. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, is a lot of people see, even at like the Caravan and Motorhome Club or whatever, like, you have to look at your audience and figure out, again, just like even this audience, that's why I'm trying to find out what people's habits are, because it's easy to presume that people, for example, camp off-grid all the time, because that's all we do. But I know for a fact that about 90% of our customers have either never camped off-grid or very, very rarely camp off-grid. And even people who are relatively comfortable camping off-grid still don't. A lot of the time, they're still happy enough to just stay in a campsite. That's not for us. So I think that can be a big problem with trying to bring on sort of technology. It's like trying to persuade your dad. Like, if I use my dad as a prime example, so back in the day, you see social media, and he was like, oh, that's no good. Why would you want to use that? This, that, and the other. Now, he's the biggest addict to Facebook. The algorithm ropes him clean in, and he's such a goon for that sort of stuff that he's like, have you seen all these videos on Facebook about this? Oh, you should see, did you see it on yours? You'll have seen it on yours. I'm like, Dad, I don't know if you realise this, but it's just to you. What it's doing, and it's doing it very well, is it's just keeping you full on addicted. I mean, obviously, no one uses Facebook but old people now, but my dad is just like, he's new to the party. So to him, he's like, this is amazing. So once you can bring them round in newer technology, they're great. It's just harder to try and get them round. So, and they're stubborn, aren't they? So yeah, you know, you are, if you're watching this, if you fall in that age bracket. So yes, a central booking system website, something would make a massive difference, because the biggest problem I think is when you're on a bit of a road trip and you're trying to find somewhere, you have to like try and find the campsites first. So you're on Google or something, Google Maps. Or fair enough, you've got a guide. We have all that sort of stuff covered in the guides. But if you're not, and it's in a new area and you haven't got a book, as an example, you're gonna have to find the campsites on Google, then find phone numbers or websites, try and book them. Often, if you're gonna be trying to stay that night, that's a pain. And now what they're also bringing in is some of them have got 2 to 3 night minimum stays, which is a load of bollocks. What a stupid idea. That is the most blatant way of saying we didn't want people on road trips as humanly possible, because it's not a money thing. So we did ask in there, do you agree with this? And 100% of people said no, which I'm in full agreement with. But we've had this before. So a couple of years ago, we were, not the first time, one of the first few times we went to Skye, we decided to get the ferry from Malig across to Skye and go to Skye that way instead, rather than driving. And Danny had rang a campsite and they'd said, oh, there's a, I don't know, 2 night minimum stay. And she was like, oh, can we just pay for one? Because we were getting the ferry the next morning. Can we just pay for the 2 then? And we'll just stay 1. And they went, no, you can't do that. So it's clearly not a financial thing, because if it was a financial thing, they would have said, yeah, do whatever, but you have to pay for 2. So I think it is, I suppose, like a way of saying we don't want your kind here, which is, I suppose it's fine, and I'd rather them be honest with that. But I don't know how I feel. It depends on where the location is, because I mean, if you're in the Lake District or you're in, I don't know, the circus, like down Cornwall way, like people are probably gonna stay in a campsite because it's just chaotic to drive everywhere all the time. And realistically, because it's a relatively small place, and you're not moving on day to day, you can use something as a base camp and head backwards and forwards. That makes sense. Some of these are like on the NC 500 or up in like near Skye. Like most people are going to be going there and they're sort of going to be carrying on driving the next day, going to be driving further the day after or whatever. They're not going to be staying put. So why force people to stay 2 or 3 nights when you know that's not going to be the case? It could just be a laziness thing in some of them where they just didn't really want it. Like if you can book, say, everyone in at 3 nights, that's like 3 times less people, or 300% less work, I suppose. I don't know what the maths are. I'm not particularly great at that. But you get what I'm saying. Like for every 3 customers you would have needed previously, you only need 1. So I get that. But I didn't agree with it. Plus, it does hinder your road trip, because if you need to stay a couple of days, most people need to move on. People haven't got the luxury a lot of the time to be able to spend more than 2 to 3 nights at a place. They just haven't. The next one was about the check-in process, which is I hate it. Honestly, I've covered it in another one, so I'm not going to get into it, but come on. There's got to be a more sensible way than doing it the way they do it now. So what I asked is, do you like it how it is now? Would you like to see someone upon arrival, but give us a leaflet and let us do the rest? Or do you want to be let me arrive and pick my own plot? Maybe send us an email with all the information I need on. I'll give you a set. What would you choose in that one? Probably the middle one, I would say, or the last one. 8% said I like it how it is, which is basically like the classic caravan and camping club style. Come into the check-in thing, come in, see someone who's sitting behind a desk who gives you a map, tells you every single thing you could possibly never need to know, then spends ages walking out and escorting you like it's Remembrance Day and you're behind a brass band to this plot, tells you which way you have to park, because obviously it's essential. We all park in a specific orientation. I don't understand that. And then watches you do it, then tells you where the electric is, even though you can see it. Tells you where the toilets are, even though they already have, and then eventually leaves. So 8% are clearly, maybe that's some of the other 4% or whatever it was who were like the older people, maybe. 24% said they'd like to see someone upon arrival, but give us a leaflet and just let us do the rest. Like, that's the logical one as a bare minimum. Now, I think more people would have actually voted for the next one, but I think 24% who said this one presumed I meant that the other one wouldn't be manned, and I didn't necessarily mean that. I should have made that more clear. But people want to know that there's people there, but just use them when we need them. We don't need to do all the rest of it. Like, there's no harm in saying, right, because I get a lot of the time what people might say is, well, there's different plots. Some have electric, some don't, some have grass. You can just park wherever you want if you're not supervised. I'm not saying that. So if we use, say, Glenmore camping in the forest in Aviemore as an example, although they do still escort you, what they do is they give you like a little thing you put on your mirror, inside, outside, whatever, your wiper, and it's colour-coded and it tells you what kind of plot you're on. So then on a night time, they just do a little scout round, just check that knee one's parked somewhere that they shouldn't be, and that's that. Just do that. Is that not an option? Could you not say, right, all electric hard standing bays have a blue stake next to them or a blue post, whatever, blue badge with a number on, whatever. All hard standing without electric have a red one. All grass have a green one. Grass with electric have purple, whatever. Just something like that, a colour coded thing, easy. Then, I mean, we even go to one when we have the kids, which is the only time we ever visit campsites. And it's a campsite where there's a lot of kids and they didn't even escort you to the plot. They just say, oh, it's number such and such. It's this one on the map, circle it, and then let you through the barrier and you can crack on. I don't understand why so many of the adult type ones where there's no kids really, why they still need to escort you. Just tell us the plot, double check it on a night time. Presumably that would be less work. I'm not 100% certain, but I would imagine just escorting us to the plot and doing all the rest of it is a lot more work than saying, right, you're on electric, hook up, hard stand, and there's your blue tag, put that in your mirror, and then doing a walk around at night time. How often they would have to move people? Probably barely never, especially in these sort of ones where if we're talking about like the older generation. So the vast majority just want to be able to do the and thing. 64% just want to send us me stuff, let us come and do it as and when I want to. So the vast majority. So I followed that one up with, what kind of overnight park-up do you prefer? 8% said a traditional campsite, which is all your facilities, dog walking areas, self-contained caravan club style campsite. Again, bit of a theme here. I think that's the oldies who just like it how it is. Most people clearly are not into that sort of thing. 48% said they want something aimed more at camper vans and motorhomes for shorter stays, but have facilities like toilets and showers. So the big chunk want that. 24% said they want to pay an overnight flexible park up, first come, first served. You can turn up maybe and pay on the day, parked in a pre-marked bay, has your services and toilets and showers, and that you maybe access using a code. So basically 70% want them two things. And then 12%, which I'm guessing though it's the ones that probably off grid park now, said that they want pay an overnight flexible park up, such as a level parking area, but without any facilities. Just pay for your ticket and you be able to stay there securely without being able to be moved on. So it's pretty obvious that people want something aimed at camper vans and motorhomes. Like there's a big difference, and I think that's the problem. So if you think of like a caravan as an example compared to a camper van, now the vast majority of caravan owners get it because of what it gives you that a camper van doesn't, presumably. There's also a thing in there with cost, because obviously caravans are much cheaper, and I think there will be a small portion of people who can't afford camper vans who go for caravans instead. Sorry if I offend any caravan owners, but it's just true. So the difference is though, with a caravan, you've got that wobbly thing that you're towing behind you, you check in at a campsite, now you've got a house that's static, perfect, everything you need in it, and then you've got a car. You've got two different things. It's if that's your thing and that's what you want, there's no better way of probably doing it than that. Although some people do have massive motorhomes, then tow a car, I suppose. Probably better off just getting a caravan. I don't know. But with camper vans and motorhomes, generally speaking, we didn't want to be setting up for too much or too fussy, because we're going to have to use that same thing to go on excursions day by day. So the use is just so different. That's why I can't even be bothered to put me on it now, because I would have to put it back in the next day. I don't know, put a windscreen cover on because I'd have to take it off the next day. I mean, I suppose this is just me pointing out my laziness. But it's because, like, I'm just moving on the next day. That is what I'm doing. I didn't need to be there for ages. I'm not planning on being there for ages because I have to drive the same camper van. So having to set up stuff, I don't know, putting out outside and then put the tyre table on, as much as I love them. They look cool. I just done it because it sort of slows us down when I'm trying to move on the next day. So there's a different use case, and I think we need to differentiate. So I've come up with a fantastic idea, which I will explain in a second. But I did also do a little bit of research about campsites in general to figure out, like, when did they become a thing? What was it? Like, what's been the evolution of campsites? So obviously the first campsite was in like 1901 or something. It was a caravan and camping club one, apparently. How true that is, I didn't know. But anyway, since about World War II, so after World War II, campsites became kind of how we know them now. Washrooms, electric hookups, a small shop reception area, and people were starting to travel more within their own country. So basically, since then, the only thing that's changed is online booking. And obviously things have been modernized in terms of the appearance. But a campsite, how we use them and how they are currently is how they've been for basically about 70, 80 years. So they haven't changed. However, how things have changed massively, dramatically. So even when the first proper camper van came around, that was like sort of adopted by more people. It was still in the 60s, and it was a small, like your VW thing, your smaller stuff generally. Now they still needed services. Now that's not really a thing anymore. So what I was thinking, and I've fixed it, so you're welcome, everyone. I have came up with an idea, is, you know, in America, you have a hotel, you check in, well, you park your car somewhere, you check in, you drag your stuff to your room, you stay in there probably for the weekend. The hotel's probably got a restaurant, maybe it's a gym, it's got a bar, it's right next to other things like an area, because you're staying there to explore the area. That's what it has. Then you have a motel. Now, a motel is for people traveling. You might be traveling for work or pleasure, whatever, but you're in the middle of a trip, like a road trip. You can turn up on the day. You didn't have to book in advance. You go in, check if they've got availability. Yes. Pull your car outside the room, park up, dump some stuff in the room, get ready, go to bed, get up the next day, head off. They may have somewhere to eat in there. They may have other bits and bobs, but generally it's for people traveling. Why didn't we have a different classification for campsites? Just like what they have. Because them two things, like a motel isn't going to affect a hotel because it's a different thing. It's people, it's a different purpose. So why not have your sort of camper van, motorhome sort of aimed at, campsite that's aimed more at them on road trips and people traveling to different places and moving on. And then have your traditional stuff. You could maybe even divide a campsite between like a long and a short stay. So have your long stay, your oldies at the back so they're not getting disturbed. Because I wouldn't want to be doing that. If I'm sitting still for a few days and people are coming and going all the time, I'd be getting a little bit annoyed and being like, come on, Jeff, park that Swift up for a few days, mate. I don't want you moving in and out all the time because you never know when Brian's going to come with his shirt off, leather chest, just coming out to talk to us because he's the new person that I've got to put with a couple of days. So I get that, but cater for that. Let them have a long stay. And you can even, all these campsites have like your car parks near the front where normally you have to park to check in. It's normally a good old size area. Sometimes you leave cars there, which there's no need for that. So turn that into like an overnight thing. You just pay, it's, I don't know, a $5, $10 for an overnight park up without electric or with electric, but it's just a parking space. There's no outdoor. You cannot put anything outside. That's the rules of the motel section. Have to be self-contained. You can use showers and stuff, and maybe it's an additional cost. You can buy the code, or it's just an overnight park up. Just plug in or not, but you're staying put and you're staying in the van. You're not cooking outside, because if you want that, that's fine. You have to book a proper plot. That's how I'd handle it anyway. But we did ask sort of cost-wise what people would be willing to pay. So we asked for like just a bog standard, just a parking space, no services, no electric, nothing. How much would you be willing to pay? And it turns out some of you are full-on tight asses, because 20% of people want a park up with nothing, and they'd be willing to pay up to £5. Put your hand in your pocket, you tight little shit. That is insane. We parked at, I think it was Bamburgh Castle the other week. And I think it was like £6 to park in a car park during the day for like 2 hours. I don't know what you're expecting for up to a £5. So we'll disregard them because they're just having a laugh. 52% said they'd pay up to between a £5 and a tenner. I think it's a reasonable price. I think £7.50 to about £12.50. Me personally, I think that's any more, they're taking the piss a little bit. 20% said between 10 and 15 quid. Again, kind of fits in there. 8% said 15 to 20 quid. I don't know how you are, but you've got too much money. There's no way I'd be paying 15 to 20 quid. I mean, 15 quid would be a push. 20 quid for basically a parking space. That's taking the piss. Considering the average sort of plot on a campsite is like 25 quid. There needs to be a reason. Like, I suppose you need to have the whole justification of like, right, well, this is what I'm getting when I pay for this. And there needs to be a gap because the two, what they're providing and the cost that goes into it, like the cost to open a campsite will be through the roof. Like health and safety, all of the stupid stuff that they have to put in, all the regulations, all the, just the work, the groundwork that comes into it, never mind now what else. Where with a like a off-grid park up, essentially, like I was talking about, that's probably just a car park. It's already there. It's just some gravel or concrete or tarmac. I'm not paying 15 to 20 quid for that. Maybe between, like, I don't know, like I say, 7.50 I'm okay with, up to maybe 12 quid at a bit of a push. Anyway, we also asked, how much are you willing to pay for a campsite with all the services, including your showers? The same tight arses, presumably, 12% said 15 to 20 quid. You're not getting out for 15 to 20 quid. I mean, I'm sure you can, but they're not going to be a decent campsite. They're just not. 40% said 20 to 25 pound, which is kind of roughly, I think, like I say, 25 to 30 is probably the average. 16% said 25 to 30. 20% said 30 to 35 pound. Again, I haven't really travelled down south much because I hate it, but presumably I can imagine campsites down that way costing quite a bit and in popular areas, because again, you've got to take into consideration as well, like the whole supply and demand thing. Like if it's in a popular area, I'm fine with people charging more because that's how the country needs to be run. Like if there's demand for it, then you're going to charge more for it. So yeah. And then 12% said 35 to 40 quid. I think that's a bit extreme. Again, maybe them and the Aldi's with loads of coin, because I think that's a bit expensive. I don't know. Let us know in the comments sort of how much you pay. What's the most you've ever paid? I think the most we've ever paid is about, well, we've probably spent about 40 quid, but that's for like 5 of us and 3 dogs. So, and like in an extra car, sometimes you have to pay for that if we're taking all the kids down. The Grand California can only fit 4 of us in, so we have to take in a car as well. One thing I have heard of lately, and we haven't experienced yet, and I think I would have a meltdown if I say it, I would have a fit with me leg up, is that campsites are starting to charge separately for electric now. Can anyone let us know if there's truth in this? Because I think that's a fucking joke if that's the case. Because, like, I mean, I suppose to a degree, if that is the case, does that mean that you just pay for a standard plot, everyone pays the same, and then if you use electric, you pay for it? But if I was paying for a plot with electric, and then I had to, which cost more, then I had to pay for me on electric, I would absolutely go nuts. That's disgusting. That's like saying, oh, you can use the showers all included in your price, but you have to pay for the water, mind. Like, that's not okay. Just because electric, you need to consider that. Yes, electric prices are higher, but that's one, because you're all banging on about renewable bullshit, but also 2, because, like, realistically, what was my point there? The electric prices. Like, you have to take that into consideration if you're just put the price of the plot up. And if you've went out and made sure all of your plots have electric and now you can't really put the price up because people might not book, then that's your own fault. You have to move with the times, unfortunately, and if energy prices are expensive, then you just have to deal with it the same as everyone else does when they're paying the bills at home. Can I charge extra for that? That's a load of shite. Anyway, someone emailed in with a great suggestion. Because to me, I would say things like the Caravan and Motorhome Club, I don't know, the Caravan and Camping Club or whatever the others are, there's no point in joining them unless you're going to stay at the club sites. And didn't get us wrong, the club sites are nice. When I first met Danny, when I still had the little one, I used to always generally enter the Caravan and Camping Club one. not the motorhome one, the other one. I was a member on that. You didn't really get much discounts. It's not really worth it, I suppose. But the sites are nice. They are. There's no denying them. They're well groomed. They look nice, and generally, you're not going to get much bother there. Although I did one night stay somewhere, and a couple of vans down, there was a couple having a whale of a time. I don't know if I've heard decibels from that sort of activity being that high before. I didn't know whether she was getting hurt, but then certain things she was saying indicated that she wasn't being hurt at the same time. I was a little bit perplexed, because if that was me the next day, I'd be a little bit embarrassed. Be like, went out with the top a bit last night. We are in a campsite after all, and there are kids around, but no, they seem to be in a very good mood the next day. But other than that experience, it was always okay. Again, like dead restrictive, super like old fashioned, like for old people, but they were nice, I'm not gonna lie. However, if you're not going to them, then being a member of these places are just pointless. There's no reason to pay the membership fee. You're not really getting out. And like I say, if you're not doing it a chunk of times throughout the year or for extended periods of time, you're probably not going to get your membership fee back. It's not like you're going to pay for it. So someone emailed in and said they would love to see all club sites have LPG for vans with onboard gas tanks. I don't know about that. I ain't got LPG. I get that it's a bit of a pain, but it's an extra thing for them to stock, and not everyone's got it. So, and I would say the club sites a lot of the time are probably more aimed at caravans and motorhomes. I don't know how many caravans or motorhomes run off LPG for that. So we'll forget about that part of the suggestion. I don't know if I agree with you with that one. However, they did make a great point. We would also like to see sites allow members to fill the freshwater, dump grey and toilet waste with no overnight stop, just as part of the membership fee. Cheers to that one. What a great idea. Tell you what, if they rolled that out, I would join. I would actually join up. Anyone wanting to do any sort of off-grid stuff, because the thing is, it's a different audience a lot of the time. If you do off-grid parking and camping and all that like we do, we would never stay at one of these. Maybe if we had the kids, we would think about it, but it's just not a thing that we would do. So there's no reason for us to join it. However, should they offer something like that, I would actually join, because that would be a benefit. Again, not something we would use very often, but having that as an option, if we want to, would be beneficial. So I would. They also said the use of showers and toilets without an overnight stop for a small charge. I'm happy with that as well, because again, the other stuff, the infrastructure is there already, so there's no drama with that. Like, you're only going to come in. Yes, it'll take a little bit extra managing, but it is what it is. The showers and toilets, you have to give codes, and that's going to take someone's time as well. So I'm happy for a small charge, and then an overnight stop without any services for a small charge. And that's kind of what I mentioned earlier in the podcast, where I said, like, I think they should have an off-grid sort of, well, not necessarily off-grid, but I suppose an off-grid park up, like just in the car park, and just be like, look, if you remember, you can come, just put your membership thing on the windscreen, and you can't come in the grounds of the campsite. You don't get the toilet code, you don't get anything else, but you can park in the car park for free. No outside cooking, no outside seating, nothing. Just an overnight stop. You can't come before whatever time, and you have to be, I don't know, you could maybe put where they have to be away before a certain time as well. I don't know, but I thought at least to open a conversation to start with, to maybe have a new idea for something that could end up working in the long term, I thought that was a good shout. So thanks for that. Give you a little round of applause for that suggestion. I thought it was great. And this is the thing, I want people to send us stuff like this, because like, I'm normally pretty good at coming up with ideas, and I didn't think of that. So, I mean, we never use them, so that may be partly why also. But there's so many people that'll sit on ideas and be like, oh, I wish they'd done this. Never say anything ever, and then wonder why it never happens. Sometimes, believe it or not, you might be the only person that has this amazing idea, and if you just said it out loud or told people, and other people could say it out loud, then you never know what could happen with it. So if you have got any ideas for anything like this or anything we cover in podcasts, email them in, put them in the comments, let us know. It's chris@sloansmedia.com is the email address. Send us it over. We'll have a look into it and see. We'll mention it if it's a good idea, or even if it's a specifically bad one. I'm not going to lie, I might mention that as well. But send them over. So in summary, People definitely want a better booking system to see availability on like a wider scale. And I agree with that. I think it's essential really to just help people when they're on the move. Again, if you're going to be staying somewhere for a week, that's fine. You're probably going to book it well in advance anyway. There's no need for that then. You've got time. But for road trips specifically, which is what this is about, we need something to be able to see it on a wider scale. Is there any availability tonight for this area where I am? No minimum stays, get rid of them. Shit idea. Laziness, that's what that is. Laziness and greed. Laziness, not ladiness. Laziness and greed. Let us find the plot. We're capable of it. We found the campsite. We got there, didn't we? I'm sure we're going to find a plot. There's no worries about that. And even most of the time, you give us a map anyway. Just put it on. It'll be like a little treasure hunt. And it'll save you time as well. Have a short and long stay section. If it's big enough and you've got space, try something like that. Instead of mixing them all, because caravan owners didn't like camper van owners. We haven't got as much in common. It's as simple as that. You put two camper van owners, the chances are, worst case, they've got one thing in common because they've both got camper vans. Put a caravan and a camper van, it's a different thing. And people are on teams like, I wouldn't. Even if someone wanted a camper van, say a caravan owner really wanted a camper van, but couldn't afford it, most of them are not going to say that. They'll just make up some mad lie about why they haven't got a camper van instead and be like, no, we prefer the luxuries that this caravan gives us. I don't know why they'd have that accent, but you know what I'm getting at. Maybe it's like I say, have a different classification for campsites. Look at where your campsite is. I mean, if it's on a road trip, people are not going to stay for a few nights or they're not going to want to cater for that. Club sites, definitely. What a great idea. Let us use stuff. Let us join. Even offer a different membership for people who can't join, who don't want to join in terms of staying there, but they want to use that. Have different levels, different tiers. Put it on a subscription model where you have to subscribe for the year or something. I'd do that. So like I say, if you have got any suggestions, have got any ideas, things that you want to air, you want to get them out in the open, because sometimes things sound good until someone else says them when you've told them and you're like, oh, actually, that sounds a bit shit now he said it out loud. Send it over. I'll say it out loud. I'm not scared. But thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on any of the rest of them, give us a little review, give us a little comment, a like, and obviously sign up to it or whatever it's classed as on stuff like Spotify. Follow us or whatever. See you in the next one.